Chuck Pierce is an ordained minister and president of Glory of Zion International Ministries and Global Spheres, both located in Texas.
And I have ministered together for 20 years, and something happened in that gathering on the first night I have never seen happen before with Cindy. And she would start to speak, and then she would stop and speak in tongue. I've never seen her do that. I would interpret the tongue. The first portion of the tongue that she spoke was, "Watch, for the highways will begin to buckle now. Watch, for the highways will begin to buckle now. Watch, for the highways will begin to buckle now." Then God said, "I'll start changing nations, changing nations, changing nations, changing nations. Watch how the highways buckle." We have begun a new season.
That is amazing. Or is it amazing? Worldwide, there are around 500,000 earthquakes each year. 100,000 of these can actually be felt. Generally, there are over 150 major earthquakes a year that are from a magnitude of 6.0 to 9.9 each year. That means that there are at least 150 earthquakes each year that can buckle highways. Nation against nation, is this unusual? Just look at the history of the United States. 1940s, World War II. 1950s, Korean War. 1960s, Bay of Pigs invasion, Vietnam War. 1970s, Vietnam War. 1980s, invasion of Grenada, invasion of Panama. 1990s, First Gulf War. Somalia, Civil War. Bosnian War, Kosovo War. 2000s, War in Afghanistan, Second Gulf War. 2010, War in Afghanistan, Second Gulf War, intervention against ISSI.
I see earthquakes happening. We were in a meeting at Passover, and the Lord said, the next 21 days, watch where the earthquakes occur. The minute we prophesied it, Mexico City had a great earthquake. There were earthquakes in Texas, Oklahoma, Seattle. You're just seeing shakings occur. What I think the Lord is doing, Paul Keith, is outlining and setting a path for His glory to come, but it's also a path of deliverance.
Yes, there were earthquakes near Seattle and in Oklahoma, but they were all very minor. Most of them were not even felt. The earthquakes in Oklahoma were believed to be caused by fracking, not by a move of God. Chuck wrote, "I then saw a massive storm hitting the East Coast. This storm would be sent as a sign for the shift that would come on the East Coast, and water would cover Atlantic City. I visited this area again in June 2012, reiterated the word, and the prophetic team mobilized prayer up and down the coast of New Jersey and Delaware. The Lord shared that when the city went underwater, this would signify the beginning of a necessary infrastructure shift that would begin in the East Coast. This would not only greatly affect New York and New Jersey, but then Chicago, Detroit, Cleveland, Cincinnati, Indianapolis, St. Louis, Charlotte, Atlanta, and Miami-Dade County. These megastructures would rearrange their governments in a confederation that would not promote Christianity as the first spiritual influence of the land, but embrace other forms of religious alignments that would make handshakes politically to control their regions. After this, the West Coast will begin to shake from San Diego to Seattle." Is flooding unusual in Atlantic City? The report released by the Union of Concerned Scientists found that flooding is already occurring more often in places like Atlantic City. The city now averages nearly 30 days per year with tidal flooding, according to the report, up from 5 days per year in the 1970s.
This is a season where, just like this atmosphere out here, is pretty tumultuous.
Yeah.
Driving through down here, it's flooding, winds are blowing, you hear the thunder, you see the lightning behind us. It's a pretty tumultuous time. The atmosphere has a lot of unsettledness in it. I would say that all over everywhere, really, because I think there's a lot of things unsettled in the kingdom right now. If there's one thing I could see, and I think I'll talk about it tonight, so if you tune in with us, you'll be able to hear it. This is a season where the Lord is realigning and reordering his apostolic prophetic people. Right. Because there's a movement of God in the brewing. And I think we feel the brewing right now. Right. A lot of shaking going on. Old religious structures are shaking down. Right. But also there's a lot of visitation coming. There's a lot of things happening. You see an alignment coming like you saw with the blood moon. Right. Even though a lot of people get real spooky over things like that, it's not like something to get afraid of like Y2K, but you do have to recognize that the sun, the moon, and the earth, all three align. Mm-hmm. When you see that, you see certain fulfillments begin to happen. Right. You see the earth shifting.
Chuck Pierce uses words like shift, atmosphere, earth realm, energy, alignment, pillar, portals, and so on. Many of his writings also seem to place an unusual emphasis on colors, sounds, and vibrations. This may be a form of Kabbalah, a New Age form of Jewish mysticism.